Well, welcome everyone to our Social Protection Symposium. This is an event jointly hosted by Harvard Center for International Development and MIT's Poverty Action Lab in partnership with the Harvard Ministerial Leadership Program. I wanted to welcome both of you who are physically here and hopefully enjoying some good food, plus those of us who are virtually here. We actually have 300 or 350 people sort of registered virtually as well. Sadly, we can't offer you food. We haven't quite figured that technology out as yet. But it's great to see all of you physically and virtually here. My name is Asim Khwaja. I am the faculty director for the Center for International Development. CID is a research center which works across Harvard. Our basically mission is to build a thriving world for all. And we believe we can do that by essentially doing what we think is a talent play. What we want to do is build talent, convene talent, and deploy talent. And in that spirit, we have some unbelievable talent on offer today, both in terms of amazing researchers in this space, but particularly, and I'm very grateful for the honorable ministers, a whole bunch of really impressive leaders from different parts of the world. Most of them are on for some exciting UN meetings later this week. And that sort of provides us a moment of reflection. Development is an exciting space because we think we can make a huge difference, but it's also a challenging space in the sense that there's lots of work to be done. Not to start with a sobering tone, but we are meeting this week in the UN General Assembly meetings to talk about our collective progress and meeting some of the goals we jointly agreed on trying to meet. This is the halfway point in the SDGs 2030. Unfortunately, only 15% of the SDG targets are on track. There's still projected to be about 575 million people who will be living in extreme poverty by 2030. Only a third of the country's targets will have been met by that time. And so this is really a tough moment, but I think it's also an exciting moment. In particular, it's an especially exciting moment for the topics that our panel is going to be discussing today, which is social protection. A lot of the issues that we're facing, not just during COVID and after COVID, but even outside of that, are issues of social protection. I think the good news is a lot of emerging economies, a lot of developing economies are increasingly beginning to set up pretty robust welfare programs, and I hope to hear from our panelists and our facilitators about that. Before I turn over to my colleagues, I did want to recognize two people who've really made the event happen. CID's Enitan Okediji, where is she? Enitan, she's probably running around doing work. There she is. She's hiding away from you, please. And JPAL's Emily, where is Emily? I know Emily was running around. It does take a lot of effort to build this village, and these are two leaders who have really helped us put this event together. So without further ado, let me introduce my colleague Ben Olken from MIT to take us away.
Great. Thank you very much, Asim, everyone who's joined us today in person, and to everyone who's joining us virtually. So thanks for joining us for the Social Protection Policymaker Symposium. My name is Ben Olken. I'm a professor of economics at MIT and a director of JPAL. And JPAL is a global research center that's headquartered at MIT, working to reduce poverty by ensuring that policy is anchored by and informed by scientific evidence. So together with my colleague Rema Hanna, I'm excited to introduce today's panelists and to tell you a little bit more about what we're hoping to accomplish today. So first, let me introduce our panelists, and please forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's names. But we have the Honorable Fatou Sanyang Kinte, the Minister of Women's Affairs, Children and Social Welfare from the Gambia. The Honorable Jean Muan Auza Sendesa, the Minister of Gender, Children, Disability and Social Welfare from Malawi. The Honorable Miriam Dusu Dalmeida, the Minister of Grassroots Development, Youth and Youth Employment from Togo. Rosine Sori Koulibaly, the former Minister of Finance from Burkina Faso. and Mohammed Khatib Basri, the former Minister of Finance from Indonesia. So before starting our panel, I just wanted to frame a bit what we're hoping to talk about today. So our discussion today is going to center about how our panelists think about social protection in the context of the wide variety of challenges that their respective countries face, and also, to be frank, the limited budgets and budgetary choices that they face and that everyone has and the hard decisions that people have to make. What are the challenges they face designing and implementing social protection programs on the ground? And what are the innovations that they have found that have been really useful to overcome these challenges? And the other thing I want to say is that, I'm a researcher. I come from a research perspective. And the other question that I really want to know the answer to is, if you could talk to the research community and say, what would be most helpful for you? What were the problems that you feel like you don't know the answer to, that we as researchers could help solve? That would also be really important too. And my colleague, Professor Rema, Hanna, will have a lot more specific questions. But before we dive into the specific discussion, I just want to say, what is social protection? What are we talking about? So, everyone has their own definition, but broadly speaking, social protection refers to the wide variety of programs like cash transfers, in-kind transfers, social insurance, pension programs that aid to both provide assistance to low-income families, insure people against shocks, break poverty traps, and really help support people throughout their life cycle. Now, social protection programs have been rapidly evolving throughout worldwide, but particularly in low and middle income countries. But I think we believe that designing these programs in a low and middle income country context is really different and entails different challenges than those that might be faced in high income countries. And I think the recent COVID crisis sort of highlighted this very much to make sure that the role that that social protection can play in making sure that people aren't left behind. And so, in response to that rapid growth of social protection programs, and particularly in low and middle income countries, JPAL and CID together launched a social protection initiative. And the goal of our social protection initiative is to both help synthesize, what do we know, and also what we don't know, and then to support research, particularly randomized evaluations, to help answer the questions of what we don't know. So those are kind of our goals. And in addition, as part of that, we have two primary writing projects, kind of on the synthesis part. First, we've already produced an evidence review that synthesizes the literature on social protection in low and middle income countries and kind of tease up some of those open questions. And that's available on our website if you're interested in that. I highly encourage all of you to take a look. But the second piece, actually, to go even deeper, we're currently working on a handbook of social protection in low and middle income countries to consolidate those learnings, go deeper into a whole range of issues on poverty, inequality, health, government finance, other topics. So the section topics include strategies for reaching the right people, approaches for finding assistance, challenges, potential solutions, impacts. We're trying to cover sort of all of that. So that's going to be an ongoing project that we're sort of working on right now. And the reason I want to mention that is that's actually relevant to kind of part of our agenda for our agenda for having this discussion today. And that's that, I feel like we as researchers are really good at summarizing kind of what the research community has to say, but we also felt like it's really important to hear directly from policymakers as to what they think is important and what the challenges they faced are and what the open questions are and kind of their views on this topic as well. So actually, we're going to have a section of our handbook which will actually consist of excerpts and a summary of today's conversation to make sure that perspective is included as well. So thank you again for joining us for the symposium. I'm really looking forward to hearing everyone's views, and I'll turn it over to Rema Hanna, who will moderate the discussion.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rema Hanna. I'm a professor here at Harvard. And I'm also the chair of the International Development Group here at Harvard. As Ben said, I'm co-leading with him the Social Protection Initiative across CID and JPAL, and a faculty affiliate at both. I will stop on my own introductions because I'm actually really excited to get straight on the panel. We don't have that much time today, but there's so much to cover. And we have such great talent here today that I'm excited to hear everybody's perspective and views, and so I wanted to jump right into it, if that's okay. I'm going to start off with some more general questions to get a sense of what are the kind of issues around social protection that you're all grappling with, and then go into some more specific questions within each country. But I'm going to start off with you, with Fatou, that I wanted to ask a little bit about how have you engaged in designing and implementing social protection programs in your role as minister, particularly as you're thinking about bringing in women and children, and how these programs can really make a difference in their lives?
Thank you very much. I want to say I'm very happy to be here and to share my experience as well as learn from others. I was involved in the development of the social protection policy in my country. I'm coming from the UN. Then I was a UN staff member in my country. When we supported the government in developing the social protection policy 2015-2025, and we also supported government build capacity. Government created the Secretariat for Social Protection, and then which is responsible for the coordination of the program in my country. And as minister, I'm responsible for implementation to some extent. My directorate, one of my directorates, Director of Social Welfare, is responsible with others for the implementation of the program. So I think I'm very fortunate to be involved in the design of the policy and now in the implementation of the policy. And as we all know, social protection is supporting the vulnerable and the poor. In my country, there's a 48% poverty level. Some regions are more disadvantaged than the others. So as a result, implementing the program, we do an assessment of the poorest regions. Try to find out who are the poorest using a set criteria. And based on that, once the survey will conclude by identifying the poorest, and then the program is implemented to benefit those. And the first program, we were able to reach out to quite a number of people, for example, covering 20 districts in my country. We implemented in the Upper River region of the Gambia. Gambia has 7 administrative districts, regions, yes. The Upper River region, the Central River region, Lower River region, North Bank region, West Coast region, the Greater Banjul area. Okay, so we implemented in the Upper River region, the Central River region, Lower River region, North Bank region, and West Coast region number 2. In these areas, we identified the poorest of the poor, the most vulnerable, and they were the target for the program. The program, as you all know, was in the form of cash transfers. It was a 4-month intervention, and we were able to support 78,359 vulnerable households with 2 bi-monthly cash transfers. Yeah. And it benefited them very much because these are vulnerable people, they are poor. And as we are speaking, now we are planning another form of cash transfer. But then we are doing the survey first to identify the vulnerable people so that they can be given support. It's a good program. Cash transfer is an excellent program. But I strongly feel that for long-term sustainability, we can come up with something different. Yeah, these are people who are vulnerable, they are poor. But if you can build their capacity on a livelihood skill of their choice, during a survey, you can find out what they want to do to be able to take care of themselves. Because it's not always sustainable to give out cash to a community or to a household. So in a survey, if you engage them to find out what they can do to be able to take care of themselves, for example, I think that's more sustainable. We all know that if you train an individual or a group on a livelihood skill of their choice, and then you give them a small amount of money to get started, a grant, and then you monitor progress, I think that's more sustainable than giving out cash all the time. So I want to believe and strongly believe that in our social protection programs, we should build in a component like that. For me, any new intervention should be piloted. Based on lessons learned, you can scale up. So in as much as we are giving out, the cash transfer is going on, that's excellent, good. But let's try a small group and then introduce the new system where we build capacity and give some small grant for them to try on their own so they can be employed, they can be self-employed. And if that succeeds, based on lessons learned, then we can scale up, consolidate on the gains, and scale up. Thank you.
No, thank you. You covered a lot. For me, it's very interesting, this idea of also thinking about not just cash transfers for the very poor who need these continual transfers, but also these new kind of, they're often called graduation programs, which give out large cash grants to entrepreneurs and trying to help people try to figure out ways to get into entrepreneurship, way to transition to other types of jobs. But I agree with you, this is something, there's been some evidence showing it's very promising, but more piloting and more work needs to be done to really understand how we can make these programs better. But then I'd like to continue this conversation with Eugene. I know you're going to have to leave a little early, so I want to make sure we fit you in before you have to go. But I'd love to hear a little bit about how you conceptualize social protection programs. What are the kind of programs you've worked on? What are the successes and challenges? And where do you, as Ben also mentioned, where do you think research and piloting and more evidence could be useful?
Thank you so much. It is an honor for me to be here at this research center. And it is a very good experience to me because this is my first time to have this kind of arrangement. So I thank you to those that arranged that we can have this conversation. In Malawi, the social cash transfer is under the Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare. And this cash transfer program started as a pilot project in 2006. That time, the country was hit hard by the HIV pandemic, and there was, this initiative that, the vulnerable people should be assisted because we had a lot of female-headed families, male-headed families, and maybe the elderly, looking after the orphans. So it was piloted, first pilot in the first 2006 in one of the districts. The other issue that this social cash transfer is addressing the issues of poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. So, because when somebody is poor, she cannot manage to have food on the table, and sometimes fail to send school, girls or boys or anyone to school, and even have stunted children at home because of malnutrition. So the government, with the cooperating partners, because this program is not being implemented by the government alone. Malawi is a low-income country, and we always, depend on cooperating partners for support, and we have got, a lot of them that support this program. So due to that, it has, in other way, helped the families to have, those that do receive, because they receive these cash transfers on a monthly basis. And due to that, they do, maybe buy livestock, buy food, send children to school. Those that are well-able, bodied people, they do small-scale businesses, and that way they do scale up the funds by doing those activities, and in that way, some of them they are able to have decent homes, and even they do afford to send children to school. The program has benefited a lot of households, about 286,000 households, and this has translated into 1,300,000 plus beneficiaries. And the other issue is that there is that kind of implementation programs. This is always implemented at district level. We are with the Ministry of Local Government. We are doing the implementation program, but with a lot of challenges, because there is the issue of identification of the beneficiaries. So during identification, there's always favoritism, and sometimes those that are deserving to be on the list, they are left out. Some because of corruption, they would want to be given some money for somebody to be put on the list. The other challenge is the payment mode. We do the manual way of payment, but of late, some of the cooperating partners have helped in the e-payment. So using the service providers, we are using the e-payment, but not in all the districts, because now the program has rolled out into all the districts of the country, 28 districts, because it was only about, in 2015, I think there were only 18 districts, but now it has rolled out to all the districts. So the other challenge is that other people, they want to be on the same program forever, yet when we are registering them, we always make sure that they know that they'll be on the program for maybe 4 years. But when you go there, sometimes other people, they want to be just receiving instead of graduating. So that is a challenge which you have seen that we need to address that, because we need to have real deserving beneficiaries on this social cash transfer. The other problem is about we had a challenge in the way the funds were being distributed, because each and every cooperating partner had its own program. So sometimes they could go 3 months, 4 months without dispersing the funds. So which made the beneficiaries to suffer when they were waiting. But recently, we have had to have a multi-donor funds that all the cooperating partners are putting the funds in one basket, so that each and every district, each and every beneficiary should receive the funds in a timely manner. So that is what we have saved as a ministry. But all in all, the program intends to achieve a lot, as I've already said, that people should have good nutrition, good health. People, they can send the children to school, they can have good shelter. That is the essence of putting these people on the list of beneficiaries. There are those that are identified to be on this social cash transfer, are those that are poor, those that are ultra poor, those kind of beneficiaries. So we have females, males, and the elderly, people with disabilities that are included on the program. On the other issue is about the management of the social cash transfer. As I said already, that we have got a director of social services at the ministry. We've got a social support steering committee. We've got the cooperating partners themselves, and we always, get, into collaboration on how best we should do the social cash transfer. But I've already said that there are challenges. Those people that want to be on the list every time, yet they have to be to graduate. And the sustainability of the social cash transfer is a challenge too, because what we have seen lately is that even those that are supporting us, the countries, they even themselves have been, been facing, a lot of challenges in their own countries due to the COVID-19. They want to address their own issues in their own countries. Now the basket, instead of growing, it's getting lower and lower. So those are the issues that the funding issue is a problem, and the sustainability of the program should be looked into. As my colleague was saying, that we need to find ways on the sustainability of the program. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. I think you've highlighted a number of challenges that we often hear across many countries, challenges regarding the identification of beneficiaries, challenges regarding how do you do the disbursement, and then a number of challenges around both disbursements of funds and the timing of funds, but also whether or not, especially in today's day and age where there's been many challenges both with COVID, with Ukraine, and so forth, thinking about international assistance for these types of programs, which I'll also get to when we get to the finance ministers. I know, Jean, you're going to have to leave early, so I'm going to ask you a second follow-up question just because you're not going to make the second round. I was particularly interested in, you were talking about this movement towards e-money and e-payment of the and we've heard various things from people about the successes, but also challenges in doing so. That on one hand, it might make it easier to get to beneficiaries. On the other hand, maybe the poorest and most vulnerable would have challenges accessing e-money systems. And so I just wanted to hear from you a little bit about sort of these trade-offs and what you've seen.
Each, mechanism, to maybe, address the other challenge, the other one, comes in. The challenge that we have, encountered with the challenge that we have encountered with the e-payment is now fraud. We have seen that because of that, now the beneficiaries are losing the funds that they are receiving. So there is still a challenge, but we are still looking into how best we can find a proper mechanism of payment. But fraud is now, how people are using, digital equipment. Instead of, using it in a proper manner, now it has just come to others, like, they can now, start gaining from what they did not, sow. So this is the challenge that we've got with the e-payment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's another thing we've actually heard as well, and I know that a lot of researchers are interested in that question and trying to think about ways to address it. I'd love to continue the conversation after as well on that topic. But right now I'm going to turn over to Miriam. I want to hear a little bit more about the social protection programs in your country. How do you think and conceptualize these programs and some of the innovations and successes that you've seen, but also some of the challenges faced?
Thank you. I hope my micro is working. Thank you. I wish I have been at your place, because when I was young, a student from MIT and Harvard were the best, and they are still the best in the market of labor employment. So I am here today, and it's like I create a contact. My English is not that good, I am perfect in French, so I will try to make myself understand. Social protection in Togo has been for a long time contributive program with formal workers, and it's cover retirement. And since about 10 years, more than 10 years, we have made a long way. We have come a long way. And we now settled a wide range of arrangements to tackle poverty and help people face shocks. You have any question, and I can give it to you right now. Informal economy, mostly. More than 60% of people under 35, so a young population. Most of the people living in rural area, likely unknown because they don't have ID, and lack of resources. That is the challenge. How can you create a useful and impacted social protection for this population? We have gone through it, and now we have many solutions. The last one is Novici, and I am sure you have heard about it. Novici was a solution for the COVID time to help people get some resources to struggle with. And we also have since 10 years health insurance scheme for civilian and military public workers and their family. And I have the opportunity, and I was honored to put on this scheme, health scheme insurance. We also in health side have many gratuity program. I don't know, free of charge program like malaria, HIV, vaccination, and some temporary free program according to what is the challenge of the time. 3 years ago, we settled a free care program for pregnant women. Then if you are Togolese and you are pregnant, you go to the hospital, you just pay a few for some administrative fees, and all the 9 years you are free of charge. The government pay for you. Even cesarean, how do you say cesarean?
C-section.
Okay, perfect. Someone said it. We also have assistance program like cash transfer for poor family instead of the Novici I talk about who is finished, but using digitalization to send money to the family in the rural and far from cities areas. Above this, we have a scholar feeding program. It's also a free program in the very poor region of our country. This is for the grassroots population, and this program targets women's for the most. We also, for young people, have labor market program, and we create an agency for volunteers who work on high labor intensive works. And these programs are now fighting against climate change by planting trees and the other program is for farmers, and sometimes the poorest one have fertilizer for free. So government provide fertilizer for the farmers also. And for this, we need plenty money because needs are growing after those crises, and people are expressing more and more help. It is about solidarity. It is about reduce poverty. It is about equity, but we have a very tight tax space. So I think my colleague of finance will help us solve this side. Because you have a very huge informal part of the economy, and small people can pay tax, but they can't afford the program for everybody. We are a small country, 56,000 square kilometers, and 8 billion people. We can guess it's small, but the challenges we face are big. We have the chance to be small, and then we can deploy a program of identification with, how do we call it? Biometrics, voilà. A biometrics identification program, and that's the next step we are working on. I think this, you have your question, and I'll be waiting for the solutions. Thank you.
No, thank you. That was very helpful. That it covered so many different topics. I just want to quickly highlight a few things before we move to the discussion of finance. The first is this issue of informality. I think for me, this is why the Social Protection Initiative and the work and the research we're trying to do is so exciting, is because a lot of these social protection programs have been designed in high-income countries. They go through formal employment system, formal employers, through formal tax systems. But for many countries around the world, it isn't an option because of the level of informality. And in fact, it's actually even more of a challenge when this formal and informal economy live side by side. And so I think this it raises an interesting question about how we can innovate in different countries where the setting is different and where the research could help inform. Yeah. The second issue I wanted to raise is, we started off talking about cash transfers, but actually there's a wide variety of different social protection programs, from cash transfers, in-kind transfers, social insurance, youth unemployment, which I'd like to get back to once we talk to the finance ministers a bit as well. But there's a lot of different, I think just the richness of these kind of programs and the design of these programs being targeted to different types of people in the population and trying to help people based on their specific needs, I think is just a very important thing to be discussing. But I think everybody in the audience, in the panel, raised a key question is, we know that these programs are important. There's a large evidence base showing how they're very useful and they really do protect the poor and the vulnerable. We think they help with intergenerational poverty. We think that they improve health and education. And so these programs are really great, but there's a lot of budgetary issues at play. And so I wanted to start with Rosine and ask you about some of these questions. When you were finance minister, how did you think about deciding between social protection programs versus other types of needs that you have running the government? And then also a little bit about this question of how do you think about trying to direct these programs more universally or targeting them to certain populations given the budget space you have available?
Thank you so much. I would like to thank you for inviting me to join this meeting and having these wonderful people in the room. So it means that it's a subject of great interest for all of you. So thank you for being here. I would like to start by stating that, in fact, my approach is a human rights approach of social protection. In the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it says that every person in a society has the right to access social protection and security. So this is a right. I think that we have to start agreeing that it's a right. Now it's easy to say than to do. When I'm so happy to see that this meeting is coinciding with the UN General Assembly, because all the commitments that have been taken by the international community, we are still waiting. Because I do believe, and then I'll go to what we do locally in our countries, but also what is expected by us from the international community. Because for me, we cannot live in a world lagging the majority behind. That's the principle. Mm-hmm. In my own country, Burkina Faso, believe me or not, 40% of the population live below the poverty line. It's just to let you have a sense of the situation. Do you know that now in my country, due to the insecurity, we have more than 2 million persons who are internally displaced? I'm not even taking into account those who were lucky to cross, I don't know if it's a luck or not, to cross the borders, to go to neighboring countries, etc. So this is a reality. It's not theory, it's a reality. So what is the response that we are giving and that we have to give to the situation? There are many. I will just touch on a few of them. Number one, the policy level, regulation. I think that that's one point that we have to do. Do we have the right commitment at the political level? Do we have the laws at the political level? That's something that is important. Mm-hmm. I know that in the US, you have the Security Act in the US. This is something that is in the Constitution, that we have the right to be protected. So I think that the policymaker, the first thing to do is to make sure that the regulation doesn't exclude the majority of the people. So in my country, what has been done in that regard? We have adopted a couple of laws. I think that I will not go to the ones that we're talking about. Free access to care for the children aging under 5. This is declaration. Yeah, there was also the access for the women, pregnant women. So there is a law also in my country. There is also for the access, free access to care for the women who have like cancer. You know, it can be uterine or breast cancer, the free access. Because people are dying, that's the reality, because they don't have access. So there are some decisions that we have taken, even the cash transfer, this is a mechanism that we have adopted in our country. But we realize that sometimes, even though more and more we are using mobile phones for the cash transfer, there is also, you know, corruption. How do you choose? How do you target the beneficiaries? Those who are, you know, local governments and administration, etc., they are the ones deciding that you should benefit from the support, the support, you not, etc. So there is bribery, corruption, etc. This is something that is important, and you have to work for that. Policymakers, I talked about the regulation. We have also the budget, which is a tool that you can use. But now, I think that that's a good news. More and more, we have what we call results-based budgeting. So at the beginning of your program, when you have your midterm program, you have a set of priorities, which is, it comes to the political will. You have a set of priorities and you have to align your budget on the priorities that are already set. So this is the role of politicians, in a positive way, not those politicking. The good policy makers, they take decision to say that, oh, this is an important area that we have to work on. Why people are not putting resources on the social sectors because they do believe that it's a waste of money. They don't see the immediate return of their investment. Because, when you see, okay, if I go and build a road, I will be re-elected because people, they see the road, okay? But when you see, okay, there are children who are on malnutritious children that you have to give food to, the school feeding. We have also the school feeding in our country. They will say, no. And these children, they are not even voters. They are not 18. so why are you targeting them? So, no, it's just to be serious. I do believe that there is a work to be done for you from the academia, the etc., to inform people that investing in human development, investing in the people, is investing for your own survival, because they will be to the labor market, they will contribute, paying taxes, etc., etc. So I think that there is a lot to do. What has been done in my country, instead of just doing the cash transfer, when I came into office, I talked to my colleagues. I said, okay, we are talking about equal access to services. We do not want to have people behind, etc. What are we going to do? And we discussed to prepare to set up a local development program targeting the poor, using that's I think the universities and the researchers, you have a work to do, is to try to disaggregate the data, to know the regions that are the poorest, what can we do for them, and those who have wealth, etc., maybe we should invest less in those regions, because we are in a situation of scarcity of resources, so we cannot do everything, okay? So I do believe that program was very, very useful, and we realized, I don't know if it's a coincidence, in my country, the regions that are facing terrorist attacks, etc., most of them are from the regions that were just forgotten by policymakers. So it's for our own security, it's important to have, a mapping of the situation in our regions, in our country, to know that, okay, we should go there, we do infrastructure, we do schooling, etc., etc., and to make sure that people are resilient, that beyond cash transfer, this is very short-term interventions, that we have also long-term prospective developments in the regions. That's what I want to say. And yes, there is also the fiscal space that should be created, but who should pay? Okay, what we are saying, the priority settings, the budget, etc., who is going to pay? I think that those who are in the most comfortable situation are those who should pay for those who do not have the means and the capacity and the resources in the country. So our development programs and policies should be really poor-oriented, youth-oriented, employment, job creation-oriented, and not just broadly, economic growth of 5%, 6%. People, they will tell you that they don't eat economic growth. Because if they don't see the translation of the economic growth in their pockets and in the plates, they won't follow you. So I will stop there, and thank you so much again for the opportunity.
Rosine, so first of all, I agree with you. This is a thing we hear time and time again about the investments in human development. I think everybody sees the bridge on the road and can cut the ribbon, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's about people and investing in people. And I know at CID, this is what Assam and Fatima and others are trying to do, about really trying to change the conversation about how can we help people thrive. I want to ask you a quick follow-up question before I get to Dede, because you mentioned something that it's a big hot topic, sort of in this space of, on one hand, you want to try to target resources to those who are very poor, but then you're asking those who are more comfortable, the richer middle class, to pay, and you're trying to think at the same time about revenue generation and tax collection. And how do you think about the link between the programs that sort of middle to upper class receive as well, and their desire to contribute? Or how do you make this all work politically?
No, it's a question of social justice. Me, when I went to before the National Assembly to present the priority and the fiscal policy, I told them it's not this sentence is not from me. I borrowed it from one of my previous presidents. I told the National Assembly, they were all there, parliamentarian. I told them that, you have the choice of giving champagne to a few of the people or giving potable and drinking water to the majority of the population. This is very clear. Does it resonate to you? Very clear. So I think that is a political option. It's a political option to take the decision because the cake is tiny. It's not enough for everyone. But if you have the cake and there are some people, eating and the others looking, watching, my famous president said that this is what we have some revolutions in our countries. Because if I cannot eat, at least I could make your food get down. So you will not eat as well. I think it's, yes, that's important. So I think that's a question really of political choice. And we have to make the advocacy. And even for the Western, they should know that, if you do not help those in the Sahel facing terrorist attacks, etc., they will cross the border. And then you won't sleep. So if you want to sleep in your house, eat without being disturbed, please, this solidarity is for your own protection.
Pak Dede, I want to ask you about, thank you for that. It was you've given us a lot to think about. But I also, I want to ask Pak Dede, you're in a country that has had massive growth over the last 20, 30 years, is sort of in lower to middle income or is straddling that point. And do a lot of these, the topics that have come up in the panel today also ring true to you for Indonesia being in a different place in the growth path? And how do you think about these issues? I know we've had conversations about these issues, about how do you think about investments in human development versus building bridge and infrastructure, which is also needed for business growth and development. And anyway, so I just gave you like 6 questions at once, but oh, love to hear from you. Oh, is it the mic not?
Is it on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jean. Thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. And I think my colleague Ben wanted to just,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, Pak Dede, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Rema. It's a great pleasure to be here. I entirely agree with what Rosin have said. She makes my life easier, but at the same time, she creates a problem because I don't have much to say. So let me respond to your question, Rema. I think this is a tough question in the sense that if we have to choose between the hard infrastructure in terms of building bridges, roads, etc., and also the human capital. Because country like Indonesia and many developing countries, I believe that we need both of it. So the solution is not to do a sort of like a trade-off, but how to look at from the financing side rather than to do the trade-off. Because let me give an example. If I say that I prefer to give the social protection rather than infrastructure, I don't think this is the right answer as well. Because let me give an example about the access to water. If the access to water is not there, it is the poor who bear the burden, right? So similar to the access to electricity. If not there, then it is the poor who bear the burden. So we definitely need both physical infrastructure and also the social protection. So in order to answer this question is, we have to look at more on the financing side rather than sacrifice, do the trade-off. Now, bear with me if I'm talking with the little bit math, with number. Yeah. First, of course, what we need to do is we have to increase on the revenue side. We're talking about this tax revenue. Yeah. This definitely need to be done for many countries, I believe, not only in Indonesia, and also, I believe, in Africa. And just one of the one example that I would like to share, Ben and Rema and myself, we produced a paper about doing the administrative reform rather than increasing the tax rate to mobilize the tax revenue. That's one option available because politically is sensible because you don't need to touch the issue of raising tax rate, but what you need to do is sort of like doing the administrative reform. That's the first one. The second one is probably we have to look at also the possibility of this carbon tax nowadays, because we probably need to look at not only from the revenue side, but also addressing the climate issue. So the carbon tax. And I'm talking about the case of Indonesia now. In my country, the tax incentive, or we call it the tax expenditure to GDP, is about 1.6%. And I'm not so sure whether this tax expenditure is effective or not. Why? Because we cannot substitute the lower tax rate with the doing business. If the infrastructure is not there, then even you give the tax holiday, people will not come to your country. So we have to review the effectiveness of this tax expenditure. And in terms of number, it's about 1.6% of GDP. It's significant. So if we can review this tax expenditure selectively, then we can mobilize some fund from the revenue side. Now, let me talk on the spending side, because we are talking about budget. Last year in Indonesia, the amount that the government put on the fuel subsidy was around 33 billion US dollar. 33 billion US dollar. And the one who take the benefit of this fuel subsidy is middle and upper class, because they are the one who own the car. They are the one who consume the gasoline. So the idea is very simple, because if you subsidize goods, and for example, like gasoline, this benefit will go for someone who consumes more on this particular products, right? So it shows that this policy doesn't look right. So because the amount is about 33 billion US dollar is a very significant, then probably we have to think, how can we redirect this fuel subsidy to the poor people? So adjusting the fuel price and redirect this fuel subsidy to the poor people. So let me talk with the number now, a little bit math. In Indonesia, the number of poor people is about 26 million, 25.9 million people. Now I'm talking using the definition of the World Bank of the so-called aspiring middle class. Yeah, it's near poor and even it's like a middle class wannabe. Okay, aspiring middle class. The number is 126 million. So if you assume one family is 4 people, father and mother and 2 kids, so you're talking about 30 million household, right? So the compensation for the cash transfer in Indonesia now is about $15. So let me just put an extreme. I multiply to make like $60. You multiply 30 millions multiplied by 60 is about 1.8 billion US dollar. You multiply by 1 year, 12 months, you're talking about less than 30 or probably 30 billion US dollar. This is even less than the fuel subsidies being allocated by the government. So you covered 120 million people, and the number is even still less than the number of the fuel subsidy allocated by the government. So by doing this, we can support the social protection programs that my honorable ministers talking about it before. And we can also finance the infrastructure. But the challenge is, I like to quote what Jean-Claude Juncker said. He said that we all know what to do, we just don't know how to get re-elected after we've done it. So the issue is always about the political economy. Let me share my experience. On 2013, when I had to manage the taper tantrum, we decided to take this policy. I had to adjust the fuel price by 45% at the time and redirect this fuel subsidy into the cash transfer. The implication of it, the first one was very difficult to convince my president because it was 9 months before the election. So the reasons why I was able to do it, because we were in crisis. We had to manage the taper tantrum. So I always believe that bad times makes good policy, good times makes bad policy. When you are in crisis, you can convince politicians that unless you do this, you will be in crisis. So at that time, we got a chance. So I was able to adjust the fuel price by 45%, reallocate for the cash transfer. Students went to the street. And for 1 month, I stopped reading local newspaper and also watch the local news. Because they criticize me every day. Right? But this is something that needs to be done. The problem with this reform is the cost is immediate, but the benefit is always in the medium term.
Yeah.
Exactly what Rusin said. And that's also, I completely agree with you, Rusin. That's also the problem with the investing in the human capital. Because you don't see the milestone. The politician will see, don't forget about the political cycles. 2 terms, maximum 10 years. For every term is 5 years. Then the question is, why should I spend my political capital if my successor will take the benefit of it? So we have to look at this policy from the short term as well. If you propose a policy that will yield about 30 years from now, your leaders won't be interested to do it. That is why designing this cash transfer is very important. And the way I look at it, the source of financing is there, at least from the reduction of the fuel subsidy. Yeah, and I call this policy as triple win. It's good for poor, it's good for fiscal, and this is good also for environment because it will reduce the demand for fossil fuel.
No, thank you. And I think, you raise, so many good points. I think 2 key ones. One is that, it's not just saying social protection and investment in human capital versus other types of investments, which we also need for growth and development, but really thinking about for the money we have, how can we make it better? And I think that's where this research initiative, or we're at least hoping to contribute. I think the comment about the politics, and it really just shows you that the amount of courage it takes being in the political space to say you're going to do something that you think is going to have a long run gain, and the incentives not to do that, and really thinking through the political economy of that, I think is just really important. But I have so many more questions, but I think we don't have that much time. So I want to open it up to the crowd and see if there is questions here. I think there is a mic that will be going around. Okay, I'll start here in this side of the room and then go over. And state your name, and I think the Kennedy School rules are, it has to be a question and it has to be short. So that we try to fit in a whole bunch of questions in.
So just for it to go smoothly, if you have questions, you can just come to this side. I will start with you. So your name, introduce yourself, and then.
Thank you for such an informative panel today. My name is Srila. I'm from India, and I'm an MPP student. So my question is related to results-based budgeting and cash transfers. I was involved in the results-based budgeting initiative in the state of Odisha in India. And one of the issues that we faced was that in cash-based transfers, especially for impacts that could be intangible, the results-based mechanism was difficult to measure. So I wanted to understand if that was a challenge that one of the countries here faced, and if so, how that was overcome. Thank you.
Okay, so who would like to take it?
Okay.
Oh, do we want to?
We want to
we're
take
gonna
about
take a few
4 questions and then,
okay.
yeah.
Et parler de cash transfert, si on a des défis dans la mise en œuvre.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Nazmul. I'm from Bangladesh. I missed Minister from Malawi. It would have been great because I currently have some work in Malawi. So, but anyway, I worked in a development bank for the last 20 years, and I had some work done in the access to energy sector in a couple of African countries. So I think Africa over the years have done a great job. We currently have few energy access to energy programs with a couple of government. But what I see over the years, progress is actually really, really slow. Some of the problems have already been identified, the change of political government, all the deficiencies. But despite all the challenges, I see a lot of innovative ideas among my class members, among the community that I work with. I often feel that there is not enough platform for us to share those ideas to the right people who are sitting or running the country. Maybe this will not be a very, very formal structure. It doesn't probably will not cost money because many of us are just willing to support or share ideas. Just would like to see how a platform could be developed where we could share such ideas so that some of those could be evaluated. At some point could be some research topic as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rasha from Palestine. I've been involved in social protection maybe since 2016 with the UN, and also I've seen the government work on it, and also cash transfers. The biggest challenge has been with all actors working on this is actually providing cash that makes a difference for those families. Because resources are limited and you end up giving those families money just to make them survive. It doesn't make them graduate from the program. And the other challenge, which is, this is maybe directed more to the former Minister of Finance in Burkina Faso, in terms of the development projects where we target the poor, but then again, if they are really in abject poverty, they lack the social capital and also the abilities because of years and years of poverty to actually participate fully in those development projects and make a difference. So my question is, how did you determine, all of you, determine the amount of cash to give to make a difference? Second thing, how did you deal with this weak capacities due to poverty? Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll take one more question, and then we'll do a round of all the speakers. I think one more question.
Hi, I am Pradeep Chaudhary. I teach economics at JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. I have joined here as a research fellow in South Asia Institute. It's great to learn, but I want to know, is there any pattern that we have established regarding political ideology or political power and also the social protection schemes? How do you look at it? Is it that a country with a kind of political ideology operating for long, they have established a different kind of pattern in the social protection schemes than somebody else, like some other country? So that from both academia and policy perspective, because the last point he made is like, they are not interested on many social protection schemes, but is it that globally we see, or even at a country context, we see some connection between these two, the power and the social protection?
Oh, okay, I see one more question, and then we'll hit the panel.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Katie. I'm in the International Development Program here. I'm Chinese Canadian, and I'm curious about the theme of fraud and corruption comes up a lot of times in hindering the efficacy of programs. And in your careers, have you seen anything big or small that's been effective in combating that?
Great. I think we have a number of great questions. So I think I'm just going to do a round and start with you, Fatu, if you want to start. Oh, do you want to? Or is this mic? Oh, your mic is better. This one's better. Yeah. Why don't we use this one?
Thank you very much. I think I want to answer two of the questions. One is the amount of money given out as a form of cash transfer. In my country, it is $3,000. That's a little bit more than $50. So if you consider a poor person, what he or she needs, I think that's quite small. Yes, I do agree. In my country, education is free from primary to high school. And health is also free. Yeah, but for education in public schools, not in private schools. Even health also in public hospitals, not in private hospitals. Yes, those are free. And in the schools, we also provide a school feeding program. Yes, but with all that, I strongly feel that the amount given to poor households, $3,000 is small. Yes, and it can be increased, yes, but as I mentioned earlier, countries which are supporting the social protection program have their own problems as well. So for long-term sustainability, let's think of an alternative on a pilot. Okay, the other thing, question was about the corruption. Yes, in terms of the identification of the poor people, that's corruption because people tend to put in favoritism first, their own friends and colleagues. So the money ends up in a household which doesn't need it, but which is not vulnerable. That's one thing. Secondly, in my country, because of patriarchy, when we just started, it was even to men as household heads, and they never put it into good use. As a result, now, it's given to women. When it's given to women, every member of the household benefits. I'm not saying that it's part of corruption, but it's due to patriarchy. And men don't sort of tend to utilize the money effectively. So that's the reason why now the money is given out to women, and when it's given out to women, every member of the household benefits. I think I've answered your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm turning it over now to Miriam.
Yes, sure. Juste m'assure. Cette fois-ci, je vais parler français. Et donc, je vais pouvoir répondre de façon assez intéressante à...
This time I will speak English and I'll try to answer the best way I can.
Voilà. Et qui se demandait quelles sont les difficultés qu'on a dans la mise en œuvre des programmes de transfert monétaire.
To answer the question of the difficulty that we face when we implement cash transfer programs.
C'est bien ça la question.
Yes.
Oui, exactement. Alors, c'est une question très, très, très intéressante
It's
dans la
really
mesure où, avec les autres départements ministériels, on a du mal à se mettre d'accord. Pourquoi? D'abord, pour le ciblage des zones, des régions, ça a été fait en collaboration avec une université américaine.
Okay. So the first point is the identification of people, of the beneficiaries, and this was done in partnership with an American university research institution.
Une étude qui a été réalisée, vous connaissez sûrement ça aussi, je crois que c'est l'université de Michigan.
University of Michigan.
Yeah. Voilà. Et donc, il y a des zones, la première difficulté, des fois, c'est l'accessibilité. Parce qu'on n'a pas des routes pour accéder à ces populations-là, mais elles existent.
The first issue is accessibility, so because access to those vulnerable populations, because they don't have roads to actually go there.
Alors, la deuxième difficulté, c'est que depuis cette année, on a poursuivi le traitement digital dans les zones rurales où les gens ne sont pas éduqués, en fait.
So the second issue is that we started a digital transformation, but the problem is digital literacy is extremely low.
Et la troisième difficulté, du fait qu'on ait choisi ce mode de transfert qui est naturellement plus rapide et plus efficient, la disponibilité du network.
Okay, the third aspect is the network access, which is another issue since we pivoted to digital transfer, which is more rapid.
Par contre, la bonne nouvelle, c'est que le programme de transfert monétaire n'est pas un programme isolé. Donc, il y a un accompagnement. Nous avons des équipes, une agence qui existe depuis une dizaine d'années, qui accompagne les communautés à la base, dans leur autonomisation, dans la capacité à faire des choix, à comprendre le monde actuel et les enjeux à leur façon.
So the good news out of all this is that this whole program is not an isolated program where you get something and basically you're just left alone. There is a whole system that basically helps you know what decisions you need to make, how to actually use the money you have. So it's a whole kind of training program that helps you use that money.
Et vous n'allez pas me croire, mais la première chose qu'on leur apprend, c'est de faire des économies, de l'épargne. Quand on a de l'argent, on ne dépense pas tout. Ce n'est pas une notion qui est courante dans la culture de ces populations.
And the first thing that we do, you won't believe me, is that when we give them the money, the first thing that we do is to teach them how to make savings, which is not typical in our setting.
Et ensuite, on leur donne des notions d'économie pour qu'ils puissent faire des allocations de ressources. Quand tu reçois l'argent, tu dois faire plusieurs choses avec, donc tu ne peux pas faire une seule chose et laisser le reste.
And what we do also is that we teach them some courses of economics so that they can learn more about resource allocation and different aspects that are important to them and their families.
Et la dernière chose, c'est de les organiser en groupement pour renforcer les mécanismes de solidarité et d'épargne. Et du coup, on a aujourd'hui à peu près 1 millier de groupements dans tout le pays qui sont composés de femmes qui, à la base, étaient bénéficiaires de transferts monétaires. Les transferts sont équivalents à peu près 5 000, ça fait quoi? $10.
And so what we do is that we created communities of learning so that it's easier for them to kind of rely on those groups so that they can actually learn more easily. And those are actually communities of women that were previously beneficiaries. And so it's similar to teachers of teachers. And that's.
Et lorsque vous retournez voir ces femmes, c'est essentiellement des femmes, vous êtes surpris de ce qu'elles ont pu faire avec cet argent. Pourquoi? Parce qu'elles n'ont pas les mêmes contraintes que les gens en ville. Elles n'ont pas à payer d'électricité. Elles n'ont pas besoin de certains, je dirais, des besoins superflus. Elles ne prennent pas des croissants au petit déjeuner. Elles n'achètent pas du sucre. Donc, ils ont des besoins assez limités, ce qui fait que ces $10 leur permettent vraiment d'améliorer leurs conditions de vie et même d'initier des activités génératrices de revenus.
So basically, even with the $10 that we give them, you'll be surprised to how much they actually maximize their money. It's mostly because they don't have the same needs as the people that actually live in the cities. For example, in those rural areas, they don't have to pay electricity. They don't have to do many other things that others do in urban areas. And so those women actually have reached a point where they actually make gains out of this money as well.
Et donc, les montants sont calculés, sont évalués sur la base justement du minimum dont on a besoin dans ces communautés-là. Et je peux vous assurer que c'est des communautés qui sont vraiment, c'est des villages de 1000 personnes par exemple. Donc, c'est des communautés assez réduites. Mais oui. À la fin du programme, donc, l'accompagnement aux activités génératrices de revenus est une composante essentielle de notre programme. Et ce que vous allez retrouver souvent chez les femmes, n'oubliez pas, parce que je vais te dire, c'est qu'ils achètent des poulets, ils prennent des moutons, et puis très rapidement, ça fait des enfants, et ça leur permet, lorsqu'ils sont en difficulté, de vendre un mouton ou de vendre des poulets pour pouvoir retrouver de l'argent.
So basically, she was saying that when they have, so these communities are extremely important, right? And the way they make money is that those women use that money and invest in buying sheep or chicken and all these things. And so whenever they face a crisis, they can easily, sell those to actually get the money they need to face the crisis, so to create a more resilient community.
No, thank you. No, and I agree. We see this in lots of other places as well. The idea of investing, not just spending all the cash transfers on current needs, but trying to think about savings and livelihoods. And this connects back to this idea of graduation programs. I think we're running out of time. I would like to hear from Racine and Pak Dede just briefly to answer the questions as well. So Racine, I'll turn it over to you.
So we take 2 minutes then and we speak fast because I have a lot to say. First point, concerning the RBB, reserve-based budgeting, there was a question on the challenges. I think that I can take only 2 challenges that we see. The first one, to identify the key KPIs, the key performance indicators That's important because sometimes the line ministers, I have nothing against you. They will come say everything is important. I want schools. I say, okay, you want school. How many children do you want to send to school, you see? So the KPI, that's really important to have. That's key indicators. And also to make sure that we have a M&E system, monitoring and evaluation system. Sometimes it doesn't exist. Sometimes it's very weak, so we have to work on that. Second question, on the local development project, maybe there was a misunderstanding. It's not the cash transfer. In the local development project we're talking about, it's a comprehensive program, so you have access to water, to energy, to school, etc. So, and even income generation activities. So it's something that is really comprehensive, integrated programs. Third question about the fraud. I'll let you respond.
Let me respond about the budgeting first, and then I'll come back to it. This is a very tough question because if you design the budget, you somehow need to produce a matrix, right? Outcomes. School enrollment ratio is one of the examples that's easiest. But the problem with the human capital, both issue of health or education, we are talking about quality. It's very difficult. So let me give an example about the way the Indonesian government did try to improve the welfare of the teachers. Yeah, they double the salary, but the result is do not improve the quality of students. There is a very interesting paper at the Quarterly Journal of Economics, Double for Nothing. You can refer to that. So that's difficult one. This is rather delicate. Yeah. The second aspect about, I want to address about this, whether this is a political ideology. I don't think so. Yeah. The issue is because politicians, they try to maximize the political support within their terms, right? So they are being pragmatic. One of the solutions to it is to institutionalize it. But the problem is, there is a risk of it, because in Indonesia, we adopted in our constitution, 20% of the budget should be allocated for education. But the question later on is the ability to absorb the budget. Yeah, that's also create a problem. So not only a matters, if you do a sort of like a budget earmark, you don't have the flexibility to do it. So be careful with that one. Yeah, and then you gave me some problem about this fraud issue. Of course, you know, I would say that talking about the issue of this corruption, about the fraud issue related to the social protection is always there. But the question is how to minimize that. Yeah, I don't have the sort of like a single magic bullet to respond to this. But the way I look at it is maybe we have to explore, maybe Jepal would be interested to look at it, about the role of the digital technology, for example. Is it possible for you to work with the telco company? Because 95% of the population in Indonesia, they do have access for the mobile phone. Can you provide the cash transfer through the SIM card rather than through the bank? And then this money from the SIM card, you can cash out. I don't know. This is just a sort of like, you know, would be interested to look at this possibility. This will reduce the possibility of fraud because this targeting probably will be more perfect.
Okay, well, thank you. So give a round. Okay, so you know, for me, this panel has been very inspiring because it is just, one, great to see the amazing work and the amazing talent worldwide that is trying to make things better for the most vulnerable across many countries around the world. And so that, for example, is just like extremely inspiring. It's also very thought-provoking. There's a lot of topics and a lot of questions that have been raised in my mind that I'd love for us to continue the conversation, and yes, we'd like to do more research. But along these lines, I know I'm going to be pushed off the stage in like a moment or two, but I had a few thank yous I wanted to thank all the honorable ministers for being here today, so let's give them another round. I want to thank everyone in the audience who came, including at home. It's really great that you're here today. These are just such important topics, and so I know everybody's very busy with their days, and so it's just really nice that everybody came out to really participate in this conversation. And next, I would like to thank CID and JPEL for hosting the Social Protection Initiative and really providing a foundation for the kind of work and the kind of events that we have here today. Along those lines, sorry, I have a bunch of thank yous. Very importantly, the events and the research it's made possible through generous support from a number of donors, including the DFAT, the Australian government, NORAD from Norway, and also the LIVE Foundation. And so I wanted to thank them as well for their generous support in making these kind of activities, and also making possible the research that tries to inform a lot of these policy questions really feasible. And then finally, I wanted to thank you for the translation, and we have a gift bag for you as well.